right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Council of St. Michael. We are back this weekend, and let us bring in the rest of our council members. We got Trad, Revival Operator. We got Joey in the house. We got Angel here as well. Good evening, gentlemen. The council is in session. How is everybody doing this week?
I guess I'll kick it off. I'm doing really good. Looks like we finally got all the illnesses out of our house. So feeling good, getting ready to go on retreat this weekend. Looking forward to that. So definitely be a good week.
Yep. What about you, Trad? Trad has now finally rejoined us after his super secret mission to the Gulf Coast. So we're happy that Trad made it back okay.
No, yeah, Rick, Joey, Angel, good to see you guys, and thanks for having me back. It was a top secret mission down to H Town, if you know what I mean. Had to go see some family, do some trick or treating, do all that stuff. But no, I'm back now, ready for the show, and yeah, happy to be here.
Angel, how are you this weekend? How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Just working on the homestead here. Keeping an eye on the world. A lot of things happening. But I'm sure we'll get to it.
We are. So let's just while we're waiting for some people to kind of come on in. How was everybody's Halloween? We'll go Trad, Angel, and Joey. Mine, I'll start. Mine is very quiet. I live on a busier street, so I don't really get a lot of people. Back when I was in Fort Worth, I was in one of those streets where I don't think Joey will get this, where people just kind of come in and there's just cars all over the day. So I used to sit out in my driveway and give away candy, and then I moved down here, and I didn't get it. I didn't get anybody for 3 years. This Halloween, some kids knocked on my door at 7, and this is the first year I didn't buy candy, because guess who has to eat all the candy? I don't have to, but somebody eats all the candy when it's left over in the house. So I'm trying to lose a little weight. I don't know if you can tell, but so I didn't buy any. And these two little boys show up, and I'm like, y'all want like a protein bar? I don't know what else to give you. Like, don't TP my house. We don't get anybody. But they were very nice about it. So that was my weird thing about Halloween. It was the first year I didn't buy anything, and I got called out on it by like these two sweet little kids. And I'm like, I can give you like some protein. Do you want like a jerky stick? I don't know. If that's really your parents are gonna think I'm a little weird for doing it. But the wife and I, it was a nice quiet. Yeah, for being on a Friday, I was happy about it. It was nice and quiet for me. So I don't know, Trad. I know Trad was telling me a little bit about his backstage.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was mostly quiet. Again, the kiddos, we went out of town this year, went down to see the in-laws. They got to see Auntie and Uncle's neighborhood for trick-or-treating, All Hallows Eve, whatnot. Very quiet, I would say, for a Friday night. Nothing too crazy. We didn't see anybody out and about doing anything wild, but my kiddos are little. They went maybe a block before they were like, Dad, I'm tired. I want to go back home. We're tired. It was, 7 o'clock, 7:30. I'm like, well, are you sure? You still got couple of houses you can go to, but they're young, so called it an early night. They got a bucket full of candy at the end of it, so it was all good.
Yep. Angel, do you get a lot out on the homestead out there? Do do kids come? No, well, they probably don't go past the warning signs, right? Like the parents don't go up to You muted. I think you're muted, brother.
Yeah, we're a couple miles from the Georgia border, so we're extreme southern Georgia, northern Florida, so there's nothing out here. But we got to go into town to do anything fun. So we just went into one of the Midtown neighborhoods and spend time with a good Catholic family, friend of ours. And we just did a loop in their neighborhood, so it was nice and safe. Had a good time and just went back and had dinner with them. Nothing too anti-Christian. Just kept it generic and went back and had dinner. That's about it.
I'm glad that you just did a neighborhood and you didn't do one of these like trunk or treats. I have a vendetta against the trunk or treat. I think it's a terrible, absolute nonsensical thing that is and I love my evangelical brothers and sisters, but it's very Protestant. Let's just say that. Anyway, Joey, how was yours?
All right, so yeah, we have a tradition in our household. We observe Dia de los Muertos. So what we do is every year, of course, we have to have some good food. So we order some pizzas for the kids without having their pizza that night, and then there you go. And then what we do is we actually put a table up. We have a cross on there. We have a bunch of goodie bags. We have all the pictures of all of our deceased relatives that we put along the bricks of our wall, so you can walk up and see all of our deceased that we're praying for during the season. And we give out goodie bags that have a couple pieces of candy, and then it has a prayer card. It has Benedictine and miraculous medals. We give those out, and then what I do is I actually ask and I engage the kids that are stopping by if they know about the origins of All Hallows Eve and Dia de los Muertos, and it's really good. I mean, it's good. So we have one young lady who's like, "Oh, I'm Catholic. I didn't even know this stuff. Like, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Like, I didn't know all this." And so at the end of the day, we had at least one that was enlightened by it for sure. But all the kids were super receptive to it, and they all really enjoyed, hearing the origins of it. And so it was a really good time. And our neighborhood's busy. My cross street neighbor is a Dallas officer, and he has this big display. Your more modern display of terror striking things that he does, and so our block attracts, his house attracts a lot of people. So we had a lot. I think we handed out close to 300 goodie bags.
Impressive.
Yeah.
I being married to a beautiful Mexican Texan. I should just say Texan. I mean, that's kind of built into it at this point. It's funny because it's one of my favorite holidays. I can't say it. I'm like, it's Dia de los Muertos, and I've been married to her. I've been married to her for 17 years, and I'm like, it's Dia de los Muertos, and she goes, my gringo husband, just stop. It's the day you can say Day of the Dead. It's okay. I get the pass on that one. But yeah, we do the same thing. We have an altar at the house. We put up the pictures and all that great stuff. And, that's one of the beauties of Catholic tradition that I wish more people actually engaged in now November being the month of praying for the holy souls of purgatory. I really wish we would dive like really into that because it's just such a beautiful thing. And it's I love it. It's probably it's my favorite devotional month because I do the Purgatorium Manual. If anybody is aware of that, the 31 days, it's a really amazing thing to actually do. But that's great. I'm glad everybody had a wonderful All Hallows Eve. Let's go All Hallows Tide. Let's be Catholic about it. And now we are back because things are getting spooky in the month of November, and things are going around, and we'll talk about that. The main thing we will get to is Zohran and his impact, and my theory that balkanization is happening quicker than I ever thought it would actually happen. But we have a couple of stories that I want to get to first while we give people a chance to kind of filter in. We're only 8 minutes into the show. I don't want to jump right to the money good, being people miss it. But so first story we'll deal with right now is some other things happened this weekend or during the election night. Now in Texas, we had like 55 propositions that apparently passed, even though I voted against most of them, being a staunchly anti-Catholic, not anti-Catholic, staunchly anti-government type of guy, even though they all passed. But very interesting stuff from around the union. Now, Maine, which is very much a purple state, thanks to the Massachusetts people and so forth. Maine is a huge example of a state that suffers from people fleeing terrible policies that they vote for. And now we're seeing it here. Maine has adopted red flag laws. And now Maine, which is, most people would think that you would want guns in Maine because of like bears and things. No, we're actually looking at more confiscation in that state. Now, this is in response. I don't know if you guys remember this. A couple of years ago, there was a mass casualty event from an Army guy who had an accident, and then he went on a tragic spree in gun-free zones. The crazy thing is Maine had something called a yellow flag law already in effect, and the yellow flag law did not work. And yet Maine voters decided to expand the ways to, and I like how they say temporarily confiscate. There's no temporary in red flag laws. Let's just be real. Gun confiscation is gun confiscation. From someone deemed to be a threat, which I've always, being the legalese guy of the group, never liked the idea of what is a threat, how do we define a threat, what is the rubric of a threat, and so forth. And backing this referendum Tuesday to establish these red flag laws. And so the problem with red flag laws, gentlemen, and then I'll shut up and throw it to you guys, is that they sound great on the little voting block when you get into the booth. Oh, well, if somebody's having a hard time, or if maybe there's a problem between a couple, we should be able to take their guns from them and, save these people and things like that. And most people, because they, guns are either a pro or a negative issue. You're either pro gun or you have no opinion on them. You don't care about them. And most people who don't care about them, which is the majority of the population, I hate to say it, even though, the rest of the world wants to call us like gun nuts. But if you actually realize, we're not really a massive amount of population. We have a lot of them, but the majority doesn't have them. But they vote for these kinds of things. And once these laws go on the books, gentlemen, it's they never come off, and they're used, and they're rarely used, and if they're used, they don't really work. So I don't know, Trad, Joey, what are your thoughts on this? The idea that another state has decided to confiscate and violate the rights of firearm owners. Trad, you want to jump in first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in here. It's a scary thing. I mean, if you look at what the laws on the books right now, there are 22 states, in our country, nearly half, right, have extreme risk protective orders or red flag laws on the books. What essentially a red flag law is, for those who are unaware or uninformed, it allows certain people to petition a court to temporarily confiscate someone's firearms, right? And who can be a petitioning party varies by state, but typically it's household members, immediate family members, law enforcement, etc., right? And they can petition a court to summarily, without any due process, any sort of trial, to take away your right to keep and bear arms. It's plain and simple. And again, I agree with Rick. It kind of sounds good in theory, right? Oh, you want to be able to protect the vulnerable. You want to be able to protect people. But these kinds of laws are easily weaponized to attack people who you simply disagree with, to attack your political opponents, to make it harder for gun owners to live in certain states, right? For fear of reprisal, for fear of any other number of situations. Maine being another state added to that list here, that's probably another state I won't be going to put it shortly. That's just another state I won't be going to because of the fact that it's something as simple as a petition to a state. And I think I read somewhere, Rick, I mean, you may correct me, but I read somewhere that these court orders, the petitions that go to these courts, they have like a 60 or 70% approval rate, like something outrageous. Like it's nearly guaranteed that if a petition is filed against you for whatever reason, you're going to get your guns taken away. You're going to have your firearms taken from you. So, and again, this is all without any due process, any trial, no representation on your part. You basically get a knock on the door from your local law enforcement saying, "Hey, you have an emergency or risk or extreme risk order against you. We need to see all your guns and we need to take those from you." So that's scary stuff right there. And I pray that this doesn't spread. But I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's nearly half the country that has laws like this on the books. So very scary stuff.
The big thing with it, Trad, and I want to throw this back to you real quick. When you were talking about that, people don't understand because the legal system is stacked against you as a firearm owner to begin with, even in pro-gun states. But when you're pulled into one of these risk protective orders, you are essentially playing the game of, when did you stop beating your wife? And it's well, how do you answer that question? Do you answer in the affirmative? Do you not? And so, how do you prove that you're not a threat anymore? What is the standard that you show that you're not a threat? And that's the big loophole. That's the big catch-22 that I find with a lot of these extreme risk. Oh, well, I'm not a threat anymore. Oh, okay, prove it. I'm not. And so
Exactly.
it's one of these he said, she said type of deals, which is why it's not theoretically with rainbows and butterflies. Yeah, maybe it's a good idea, but in the actual application of it, it's too riddled with human error.
No, for sure. It's super prone to just weaponization too. I mean, all these states are any state that's passed these kinds of laws is already pretty antithetical to gun ownership, firearm ownership, right? They already hate the Second Amendment for what it represents, so they're trying to do everything they can to minimize the right of individuals to keep and bear arms. And if they can't minimize it outright, they'll weaponize the legal system to say, oh, well, we're just protecting the community. Your family member, your local law enforcement officer, those living in your household, etc. Right? Even certain medical professionals, right? This extends to even confidential, medical professionals who have an obligation to keep your medical information a secret, right? Confidential, but they can they can petition courts as well to say, hey, I think this guy may have some of the wrong ideas in his head. We may want to get his guns taken away from him, right? So it's super scary. And again, these kinds of proceedings that happen in these states with these laws, they're done without you, the gun owner, even knowing them half the time. Right? Half the time, you don't even know a petition is being filed against you. And when it does pass and the court allows that petition to be granted, you get a knock on your door and boom, they're taking away your guns and you have no due course, no process to defend yourself. It literally is like you're saying, Rick, prove you're not evil. Okay, well, how am I supposed to do that? Like what evidence could I possibly grant or give to you that you would A, believe, and B, would be sufficient, right? So it's a crapshoot all around.
Yeah, you have to come in with your note from your doctor. He's not crazy anymore. Okay, well, thanks. He's a dentist who signed it. But yeah, he says I'm not crazy anymore, so I guess it's fine. Joey, one of the things with red flag laws, besides the mass shooting threat, is that prevention of self-deletion and these kinds of things. There's a study from Biomed Central, which sorry folks, it's a very competent study, but even that says the literature and everything studying on it says that it's mixed results overall. So your gun grabbing groups are going to go around and say red flags laws save lives. They save lives. But in the end, the implementation of them, there's no conclusive evidence that says that they work. And yet people are being, I would even say, lied to, Joey, saying, well, if you put these laws in, people's lives will be saved. And it's the deception that has to be done in order to get these kinds of laws passed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all this is. This is gun confiscation without a actual gun confiscation bill. This is just a workaround that the left is using to get their hands on your guns. Because at the end of the day, what is a threat? I mean, if I walk down the street at night with my German Shepherd and there's a lady walking on the side of the street, she's probably going to view me as a threat. So threat is kind of an arbitrary term. I mean, what exactly is a threat? I mean, a cat and a mouse. So it's, again, all this is this is the Vatican II of gun control. they're using ambiguous language, arbitrary terms to get their hands on our guns, and that's really what it is. They know that they can't. There's not going to be a nationwide gun ban. It's not going to happen. So the left is going to do what they can and use the judicial and the legislative process to, enact these laws where a mere accusation without, again, and the words that they use are just so ambiguous that anybody, exactly what you said, a knock on your door, you have no idea. Maybe you got mad at somebody on the road and now they got your license plate number and they report you. And that guy's a threat because he got angry because I cut him off and was acting like an idiot on the road. And that something as simple as that, I mean, that's all it is. It's just weaponization to pass gun confiscation laws. That's what this is.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
And Joe, if that was the case, if it was road rage, the state, the Texas Rangers, that's all they would do here in Texas State, because but people are, even though everybody's pretty much packing, everybody still gets a little bit antsy on the roads here, especially we were talking about 35 and the pleasures it is them driving on that one. Angel, I'm gonna throw this one to you. It's interesting that these type of laws create division within neighborhoods. It's almost kind of back to the cough and the coof when you were supposed to tattle and say things on your neighbors and stuff like that. And there's always these situations that come up. And as our resident prepper and things like that, one of your big things is never tell people your preps and so forth. But let's say, your kid, and let's say they go to public school. I know. Just go with me here, folks. Most probably doesn't do that. But let's just say, your kid goes to public school and they want to bring a friend over, and the friend sees the gun somewhere, like on a wall behind a case, nice and safe. It's not a threat to anybody. They go back and they tell their mother, and now there's tension between neighbors, and there's all these other kinds of things. And so I look at these kinds of laws as ways to separate and break bonds of neighborhood, trusting societies. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I don't know if Angel's here, but I don't know, Trad or Joey.
I can jump in. No, I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty fair point. I mean, these laws they have they're insidious in and of themselves, right? The fact that they take away firearms from otherwise law-abiding citizens, but a secondary effect of this is the communal aspect, right? We live in communities. I have neighbors. My neighbors know that, I'm a pretty conservative guy. Most of my neighbors are conservative, so we align. But in the event that I lived in a different location where that wasn't the case, and my neighbors knew that I'm a conservative, I like firearms, I'm very deep into my Catholic faith, they could they could do all kinds of things to kind of, you know, hurt me or my family, but also to maybe protect themselves. They see me as a threat because of my crazy views, quote unquote, and they file one of these extreme protection orders against me. And all of a sudden now I have police at my door saying, "Hey, we need to, check to see if you have any firearms. If we had this petition and it's signed by a judge here. Here's a dotted line. So now we have to take your guns away." Right? It's a crazy situation to be in, and that insidious part of not only taking away your guns, but kind of driving wedges, driving dividing lines within the communities you live in, right? I'd say that's even more insidious in many ways because friends can easily become enemies, and people you thought were on your side could easily become those on the other side, and it's really scary to think about, especially in a SHTF scenario where, hey, I have guns. I like to prep. I like to prepare myself and my family. But if my community around me is not on the same page as me, they may not be all too friendly with me in a situation like that. So it's super insidious and very very it drives a wedge in the worst of ways.
Angel, let me throw that back to you. The idea of red flag laws promoting spying. I mean, even there are certain states where doctors ask the question. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the meme where the doctor says, like, "Do you have any guns at the house?" And the guy's like, "I have a gun in your office right now. What are you talking about?" But it drives a wedge in society, Angel, and it creates more distrust among all of us. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's red flag laws are, you know, it allows law enforcement, family members, other parties, right? Mental health professionals, pretty much everyone that can, implement a Baker Act, right? Or a Marchman Act. They can petition a court, to, temporarily remove or prohibit someone from purchasing or possessing a firearm, right? If there's evidence that they pose a risk to themselves or others, right? So, yeah, there might be a short legal process, but just the fact that they have something like that, I mean, people can see the good in it, but like Trad and Joey and yourself were saying, um, that becomes, something that anti-gun, anti free society politicians can bend that and really, really use that to their advantage, to limit that even more. I mean, New York, they strengthened their red flag laws in February 2025, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have it up right here. It says S3340 and A5873, two more ordinances. They says they came into effect requiring courts to notify a statewide registry of order of protections and warrants when the judge issues ERPOs. Um, so and so basically uh, they're it's getting tighter and tighter, right? And I know we're gonna get there, but now with the new mayor of New York, it's probably gonna be even more restricted.
And we don't have this story, but the governor of Virginia, we'll kind of wrap that in there as well. The governor's race in Virginia went blue, and now there's a lot of worry, justly so, in Virginia, that the hammer is about to come down on the very rural part of Virginia. Because if most people don't know the politics of Virginia, it's Loudoun County, which is the northern part of Virginia, which is it's Washington, D.C. Essentially. It's where all the government workers are. They're all on a shutdown, and they all don't like Trump. So of course they all came out and forced to vote for this. But now you have a CIA spook governor who is going to implement the Everytown agenda. And just like Angel was saying, expect red flag laws, expect an assault weapons ban, expect all kinds of things to come down the pike for the good people of West Virginia who, through no fault of their own, just got outvoted by government workers to essentially confiscate their rights. And that's the tyranny of the majority there. And it's a pretty terrible thing when you actually look at the fact that these people, through no fault of their own, are now going to be suffering because of it. And it's more of these implementations, more of this balkanization, which we're really going to hammer down when we talk about what happened in New York. But it's, speaking of which, we'll move into our next one. And this is a continuation of the Glock saga in California. And I know Joey, Trad, Angel, and I, when we talked about this, one thing we kind of all agreed on was, listen, Glock can do whatever they want when it comes to redesigning their guns and doing all these other things. But the fact it appears that they bent the will to California only means that you've empowered the gun groups to continue this push. They have a new angle to restrict. And now the hammer has come back down, because now every town, after successfully getting Glock to redesign their firearms, they're going after Ruger, who has a clone, the RXM, which I love. I think it's a fantastic firearm. And I think we asked this question: what about Ruger? What about PSA? What about Shadow Systems? What about all these other companies? And yet now we see that, now that the Mike Bloomberg backed Everytown is going after Ruger, especially for producing the RXM, which is interesting because this is the latest model, guys. Shadow Systems has existed forever. PSA has been on the books for a lot longer than they have. Yet it's funny that they're going after Ruger. And where is the end line on this when these type of groups have this inch? And that was the thing that myself and a lot of other people were kind of heavily sighing about when this was passed, because now it's great. The biggest manufacturer, whatever, you can argue about who's the biggest manufacturer, but the most well-known is Glock, just because of films and propaganda and so forth. They bend the knee, even if they don't mean to. Now the door is open. And so Ruger's on the table, Shadow Systems, everybody's on the table, Trad. And so, this will have huge effects within the gun industry. And it's really going to take one of these companies to stand up. I don't think Ruger's going to stand up. I think Ruger will do something about it. But your thoughts, Trad, when you see this article, now that Glock gave up, now they're going after Ruger. And once Ruger does, they'll go after PSA or Shadow Systems or whoever.
Yeah, for sure. And when we talked about the Glock story, a couple weeks back, I was saying I think it was pragmatic for Glock. I think it was a bending of the knee, but hey, they had to do what they needed to do from all the legal pressure they were facing, the many lawsuits in these states, right? It was pretty weak, though. Honestly, I mean, the fact that they bended the knee, made these changes, discontinued these models to appease people who are going to continue to attack them. And like you said, and like we discussed, all the clones are now on the chopping block as well. Because what are they clones of? They're clones of all the models that Glock discontinued, right? That are largely parts compatible, have very easily, easy aftermarket parts supply for them. If not OEM Glock parts, then very similar aftermarket parts. But Ruger being next on the chopping block, I think it's a very sad thing. I haven't shot the RXM. I can't speak to its reliability there. But if it's a Glock clone of any kind of quality, it's going to be pretty decent. But in the Everytown article, they even said, while we are not aware of any public reports to date of modified Ruger RXMs recovered in connection with the crime, it is almost certainly only a matter of time, given the rising popularity of these conversion kits. So they admit in the article itself that there's no there's no uh, there's no evidence that any of these RXM pistols have been converted to machine guns, but they're already ahead of the game, right? We talked about this. They're ahead of the game. They got their foot in the door with Glock, one of the largest gun manufacturers in the world, especially in the US, and they said if we can get them to bend the knee, who else can we get on the chopping block? And so we'll see what happens. I don't think Ruger is going to be able to withstand if the pressure that they put on Glock is in any way comparable to what they plan to do or are doing to Ruger right now. I think Ruger's going to fold, and I think many other companies are going to fold under that same amount of pressure. And again, to these companies' credits, is it pragmatic to, change your lineup, do a switch up, do a remake of whatever models you have to avoid these lawsuits? Yeah, it's pragmatic. Yeah, it's smart for you to not lose your company over it, right? I think it's pragmatic in that way, but again, you're setting a precedent in which you're bending the knee to leftist activists, lobbying groups who hate the Second Amendment, people who don't want US citizens to own guns, period, right? And they're doing this as a method to just push that needle a little further, just get a little bit more ground, and eventually you see this over a couple decades worth of time, we'll have nothing left, honestly. So that's my thoughts on it.
I'm going to give a huge credit to Daniel in our audience for bringing this up, Joe, and I want you to kind of jump on this. BlackRock is the second largest investor in Ruger. I believe Vanguard is the second largest investor in Smith & Wesson as well. So you have these companies that have huge investments in the gun industry. And of course, that's going to be a problem coming down the line. Your thoughts on the fact that, the enemy, for lack of a better term, has a foot in the door with these gun companies, and your thoughts on what happened with the whole bending of the knee to the gun groups.
Yeah, and I'm glad Daniel brought up that point. I mean, again, BlackRock, your Vanguards. I mean, they're going to have they have a foothold in basically every company that gets started up and is successful, and it's not just the gun industry. I remember back whenever they bought out Rouse. I can't remember if it was them or Vanguard who bought them out, but they took a really good company, they made a really good product, it had really clean ingredients, and they were like, we're not going to change up the recipe, but they did. They did. It's not no longer pure olive oil that you get with it. Now you're getting these cut olive oils that are now making their way in there to increase profits. And that's what they do. They come in here and they're going to control your board. They're the investor. Hey, we have all this money in your company, so you need to do and you need to bend the knee. And of course, the company's going to be at the mercy of these big investment companies. So, I mean, really, our biggest bet we can do is hope that there will be additional manufacturers that'll come out there and won't sell out to these companies. But unfortunately, the money that gets put on the table to buy and to acquire, the shareholding, the controlling interest of these groups, it's very tempting for anybody to turn that kind of money down. And as long as these companies, like I said, look at BlackRock, look at all of their holdings. And I was an investment banker for JP Morgan Chase, and Vanguard and these different mutual funds that we used to sell. I mean, they're so heavily diversified there, but they have their hands in little. If there's a commercial on TV, bet that they have a stake in those products. Same thing at the grocery store. Anything that's at eye level, you can bet that Vanguard and BlackRock and all these big companies, all these big investment groups, they have a hand in it. And unfortunately, the floodgates are open. The floodgates are open. It's open season now. And unfortunately for our side there's not much pushback.
Yeah, exactly. Angel will get his stuff taken care of. But this idea that and I think this kind of speaks back to what we kind of settled on, where we in the gun community, we think the guys that make the guns are on the same side as we are, when in the end they're just a business. And so I'm going to go to our resident prepper, Angel, that as the guy who's our prepper and things like that, would this concern you with getting Rugers? Because let's be fair, this kind of stuff will impact California, maybe New York, but any of us that live in more freer states will be fine. It's not going to impact us in that big of a deal. But would that impact you and, Angel, when you're thinking about, okay, what kind of guns, I want a pistol. Should I get a Ruger, or should I get a Smith & Wesson, or should I get a gun that has, backing of such multinational corporations, or should I try to stick more local? Does that impact you, or would you think of that in any way? I think you might be muted again. Yeah, you might be. But the whole point of that is, um, I don't know. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would because I don't live in a state that really impacts me in that regard. Of course, with us, we already have them, so it's not like we're gonna have to worry about that. What do you think, Angel? I think he still might be.
He still might be muted. I'll jump in here for a quick second while he's getting his audio thing worked on. The thing is that it's going to impact. It's going to impact. I know I'm going to think more about it because what if I need replacement parts in the future? Replacement parts are a big deal. And Glock has already said, "Oh, we're going to continue to make parts for a certain amount of time." It's just like they've done with vehicles. Now, the older the vehicle, after a while, they stop manufacturing parts. And that's one of the reasons I got rid of my Nissan NV 3500 Trad aircraft carrier. They discontinued it, and they're like, "Well, Nissan's like, we're only going to make parts for like 8 more years, and then we're going to stop making parts from it." And then you're stuck, going to salvage yards looking for parts. It's going to be basically the same thing here. And I don't know what this is going to do. I mean, what this ultimately probably is going to do is it's going to create some sort of underground black market of parts that are going to be out there. Like I said, the gun community is going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out. Workarounds, end arounds to hopefully get around these sort of draconian laws that we're going to be dealing with from here on out. And I'm glad with the innovation of 3D printing and stuff like that. You can still get stuff done if you have the means to do it. And if you don't have these sorts of things and you have the extra money lying around, you may want to make investments, in those areas to be able to, get your own replacement parts as these things get phased out.
Yeah, exactly. And let's go to this question from Bellator here. Worried about some kind of smart gun that I've talked about it back in my days of Catholic radio. It already exists, guys. There is a gun on the market. And there are certain states. I know New Jersey has a law in the books that once this gun becomes mass market, once they have the ability to mass produce it, like in New Jersey, the gun stores are going to be required to carry it and make sure it's offered to every single one and make sure it's most of the inventory. So this is one of those bio guns that it only reads your fingerprints and all these other kinds of sci-fi nonsensical things that are out there. So these things are actually on the table, much like Joey correctly said with the electric cars and how even though the vast majority of people have rejected the idea of electrification just because it's, if you live in a city, fine, great. I don't even have a problem with Teslas and electric cars in general. I always have a problem with people pushing those ideas on people. If you want a car, go get an electric car. I don't care. But when it's like you need to drive one, now we have a problem, homie, because then, don't tell me I have to drive a Cybertruck. I'm not doing it. But this idea is, oh, well, I could see within 5 to 10 years, Bellator, to answer your question, bio smart guns are the only ones by law. You can have your Second Amendment. Absolutely, guys. This is your option. This is the way you can exercise your Second Amendment. And everybody that's looking at this gun right now, either live or in the replay, and everybody on this panel is like, yeah, that gun's gonna have like an update at 2 a.m. and it's not gonna work. If it's like my iPhone, and it's like I need you right now, and it's gonna go, I can't do that, Dave, as the guy's like breaking through the door.
Yeah, I mean, and who's to say that there's not going to be some sort of Wi-Fi enabled thing where the government can say, "Hey, guess what? You can't use your gun. There's a national emergency right now, and you can't use your gun."
Or what about
your gun's in airplane mode? Yeah, there you go. Your gun's in airplane mode. Oh, now you don't have your gun anymore. It doesn't work.
How about this, guys? What if it's tied to your social credit score?
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
What if it's
you don't have enough social credit? Looks like you can't defend yourself. That's pretty draconian. That's insidious. I mean, my phone has those thumbprint, fingerprint unlock. That's unreliable even on the best of days. Okay. Yeah. When the police are minutes away and I have this BioFire smart gun on my bedside table and I needed to read my bio data in order for me to use it properly, how long is that going to take, right? When seconds matter. When I need it now, right, to defend myself, defend my family, my property, etc. And the thing is it's on an update, or it doesn't work, or it doesn't read my thumb properly because I didn't wash my hands or whatever. Any number of things can go wrong. So for us gun guys, the practicality of this whole design, this smart gun design, it doesn't make sense. It's incoherent, right? Because the the main purpose of a firearm is to defend yourself when you need it, not
Mhm.
after it scans your thumb or after it reads your biodata or after it updates, right? When you need your firearm, you need your firearm. So, and again, you could easily push this into that draconian era idea of, well, now this gun's connected to your Wi-Fi and it's connected to your social credit score and it's connected to your, all these other things, your facets of life that you don't even think about. And, heck, who's to say if you make a spicy post on X, all of a sudden now you can't use your gun anymore? Like, it may sound far-fetched, but like, it's not that far off if you really think about it. It's not that far off at all.
Angel, you good? You back in the game with us? Not yet.
No, not yet. And that's a great point too. I mean, we may have to revisit the whole. I'm really looking at that scene from Terminator 2 with the underground Connex container bullet guns that Sarah Connor had stashed up. I mean, that's looking more and more tempting by the day.
Yeah, exactly. Angel, when you're good, just jump in.
Oh, sorry, brother. I always reminded Joey of that first scene from The Matrix. I need guns.
Yeah.
Lots of guns. That's what I want in my house, just like a row of wall, an endless wall. That'd be great.
Yeah, and so it's just this idea between you have these multinational corporations getting on these boards, pushing for these things, and I really feel like Ruger or Glock or any of these are probably, a couple years away from introducing, just like Ford, GM, and Chevy eventually came out with their own versions of electric cars. I feel like, depending on, in talking about our main story, or Mamdani, if you get some, Mamdani obviously can't be president, but if you get a president and a Congress that, just like with red flag laws, is a great workaround on gun control. This is an amazing one. Yeah, guys, you have your Second Amendment. Don't worry about it. We just have this much more safer way. It's a smarter way. It's going to make sure that, people won't get hurt or all these other kinds of nonsensical things that people talk about it. So it's one of these things that is very scary. And Bellator, thank you for adding that to the conversation, because that really does lead us from one into another. And so it's very much the fact that, Glock bent the knee. Ruger, they're going after Ruger. Once Ruger bends the knee, because as Trad says, these guys don't have the money to compete with every town. Bloomberg's a billionaire. And so and then on top of the donations they get, they can just funnel money to these lawsuits, and they can sue Ruger in 4 different states. And now Ruger's going, okay, you know what? Fine. We'll make it whatever proof or whatever the case may be, or we'll go to the smart gun. Just leave us alone so we can continue to try and sell these kinds of things. Because in the end, outside of PSA, close to my heart, most of these guys are, and PSA is a business as well, but they're businesses. They want to make money. They want to sell contracts. They want to be able to provide for their shareholders and their stockholders. So it's a dangerous type of road that that we all saw with Glock kind of just being the first big domino to fall.
And it was a big domino.
It was. Angel, my man, are you in? We're gonna get you, buddy. We are gonna get you into the show. I guarantee it. But something is something. Okay. So we'll move on, and it's. I don't want to say it's scary. I don't want to even put fear in people's eyes. I just want you all to be aware that the losing of these gun companies. I would still say if you want to go buy a Glock or buy a Ruger or any of these kind of stuff, get them, but also get, as Joey said, maybe get a couple of extra barrels, some springs, some stuff like that, so you don't have to worry about it in 2 or 3 years, because barrels, they'll stick around forever. Springs will stick around forever. Backup triggers, sights, all these kinds of stuff. While we're in the Trump slump, while these things are available, while they're out there, I definitely think if you're going to grab a Glock or grab a Ruger or any of that frame, that design, let's just the striker fire design, the crucifix design that all of these companies essentially use, might be a good idea to right now stock up on them, just to not worry about what happens in a couple years. So
yeah, and prices are down right now on a lot of stuff across the gun world and the prepping world too in general, but especially in the guns. I mean, guns have really come down quite a bit. I mean, obviously you still have your big, H&Ks and Daniel Defense that still have astronomical prices. But I mean, you get what you pay for with those. I'm not down, cash and shade at any of those. I love the Daniel Defense 308, but you do need to make an investment into your arsenals. Make an investment now. Bite the bullet. We have tax season coming up, so if you do get a refund, maybe allocate so much of that money if you can towards updating and getting additional parts for your firearms.
All right, buddy. Yeah. I muted you.
Oh. Yes, I can't hear him.
Yeah.
No. We'll get him. We'll crowdfund. We'll crowdfund for some stuff for Angel, because it happens. And it's good. We'll get him back in. So let's move on to, I don't know if anybody has any last thoughts on that, Trad, if you had any last thoughts on that.
I was just going to say real quick, for the Glock issue specifically, I mean, Glocks overnight, at least the generations and the models that were discontinued, those are now in the gun community known as gray market items. Right now, you can technically get them, but they may be a lot harder to come by right now. So, and I agree with you. If you still want to get a Glock, if you still want to get some of these clones, get them now while prices are low, before scalpers come in and scoop them all up and then price gouge later down the road. This does happen all the time, and we are in a slump here with this administration, where the prices are pretty good across the board for most gun related and prepping related items. So if you're interested or even thinking about it, take this as a sign and go out there and get you that firearm, whatever it's going to be, and get yourself some extra aftermarket parts or for some OEM parts, so that if you have a malfunction, if you have an issue later down the road, you can easily replace parts without having to worry about, oh man, is this going to be in stock? Am I going to have to go on a waiting list? Any number of things. So highly encourage you, if you're thinking about it now, just pull the trigger and do it.
I like that. Pull the trigger. Nice.
I threw that in. Like that. Okay.
Well done.
Yeah, that's a great point. But Bellator just made too. Learn the gun mechanics. Find local gun guys. There's a lot of guys out there. That I had a buddy of mine that was an armory guy, and he could do anything on any gun, and get to know those guys and develop a relationship with them. So even if you're not the best at tinkering around with things, or maybe you have fat fingers or something, you can't mess around with those small gun parts. Hey, you got a buddy that can work on them. Definitely go down that route too.
Yep, absolutely. Angel, my man. Okay. So, hey, I think you're there. Talk. Thought I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's move on to our next story. The big story of the night. The thing everybody is wanting to talk about. And Catholic Prepper will get into this show. I promise you all that. I promise you that he will get in there if it's the last thing I do. This was the thing that all the right-wing outlets went kind of nuts on. This is the thing that everybody kind of lost their mind over. And it's the kind of the worst kept secret, the fact that Zohran Mamdani won election in New York. The thing that gets me, guys, is that a blue city elected a socialist mayor. And I'm not shocked by these things, but the fact is he's there. He's an avowed socialist. He's preaching to the choir. And there's a lot of things we can either get into or not, if you guys want to, the reasons for his success. But there's a couple things for us within this show that we can talk about. The first one is that, unfortunately, New York, like California, is a tastemaker for the rest of the union, especially the blue states. When things happen in those states, the other blue states tend to fall in line and tend to do them. So that's a problem that we're dealing with there. And the second thing is going to be the rapid fleeing. And the fact that people are going to be fleeing from the state and resettling. Now, a lot of people think, oh, well, it's usually conservatives that are leaving. Let me just point this out to you as somebody who is from the Northeast. A Northeastern conservative is a moderate liberal at best, on your best day. And so when they go to places like Tennessee, and of course, I'm sure you guys all saw this on X, the amount of memes that came out, we're full. please don't, people making like maps of Oklahoma and saying, oh, that's Texas, or, Arkansas, that's Florida. Don't come here. But this rapid balkanization that I was going to, I've always said within the next 20 years, I thought balkanization was going to happen just by politically, spiritually. We're two totally different people at this point. You can see it in every election cycle. The way the rhetoric has been ramping up on one side and the way Republicans and conservatives have not, for lack of a better term. They're just kind of going in reverse. But we're seeing this, and so once again, Trad, Joey, and then Angel, thoughts on the election of Mamdani. I wasn't shocked. I'm also not freaking out about it because it is New York being New York. But the thought of, does this escalate a potential, I'm not going to say a civil war, but the unrest between both sides, I feel like, are going to just continue to escalate. I actually feel like this is an escalation or an advancement of that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I'm thinking, on the onset of this, Mamdani's a mayor of New York, a city in a state that I don't live in, I have no connection to, right? So I don't care that much, but I do care in a broader political sense about what his election kind of represents for the country, right? So he was going up against Andrew Cuomo, this kind of establishment Democrat guy, and Mamdani ran on a very progressive, very liberal leftist ticket. He describes himself as a democratic socialist. Had a lot of backing from immigrant communities, from different cultural and ethnic communities in New York, and he won. He ended up winning that election, and now he's going to be the new mayor of New York. So it's something that, again, on the onset I didn't care as much, but what it represents in a broader political context, it's pretty scary. I mean, we had Father Nix on a couple weeks back, right? And in that talk, we talked about it's not just a difference of opinion when it comes to talking with leftists or liberals or Democrats, right? It's a difference of your entire worldview, your values you hold, your morals, your ethics. Everything that we hold sacred and dear, they despise, and everything that they hold sacred and dear, we despise generally, right? So it's not a matter of I vote red, you vote blue. It's much deeper than that, and it's going to become it's been a political balkanization for many years now, Rick. I agree with you there, but I think it's going to come to a point where it's going to be a cultural and a societal balkanization, and where I think we're accelerating towards that point more quickly than we can really anticipate. I've been saying for years, I really appreciate, for Catholics, one thing I wish we did better, I kind of respect Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses for this, they just detach. The Amish, they just detach. They say, no, we don't want anything to do with this. We're going to go buy a huge compound and go live on it with all of our, religious minded and politically minded friends. And we're not going to be involved with any of you guys. So I can kind of respect that in a lot of ways. And I think with the people fleeing these blue states, the blue states are going to get more blue, and with the transplants coming into states like Florida, coming into states like Texas, you may have a little bolstering there for the Republican Party and whatnot, but demographics are destiny here, and if you don't understand that at this point, it's going to be really tough to kind of sway anybody's mind or opinion on these sorts of issues. So Mamdani, again, I saw a tweet from Trump today. He said he might give him some help, might help him, with some things in New York. And it's like, what does that mean? I thought they were on the other side, but we're helping them out now. So it's like both sides are kind of just meh for me at this point, but it's definitely a culture shift and a huge paradigm shift.
Yeah, definitely. And those are all fantastic points. I really don't have a ton to add to that, but you did say it right. I mean, at what point do we just detach? And at the same time, though, you can detach, but eventually the wolves are they're going to come, and they're going to come after you anyways. So really, it's just kind of a tactical retreat that we're kind of being forced into. It seems like, because at the end of the day, we still have the Muslims we're having to deal with. They're still going to come in and they're going to utilize the same process to get their people in power, and then to use that power to pass things like, gun control. I could see them going after gun control in order to get weapons away from us. So then therefore they can use their power over us, because now we're disarmed and we don't have any teeth. we're just being defanged. It seems like, and not defanged as like we're going to be an offensive force, but we're going to be defanged that we're not going to be able to defend our way of life, which is the Christian way of life. And it's a like I said, I don't have any ties to New York or California at all either. I could really care less, but at the same time, it's something to watch because, here in Dallas, we have this up and rising far leftist lady that was elected, and she's starting to make some power moves now, and she's talking the same way that some of these leftists over there on the East Coast are talking, and now it's coming right here to Texas too. So, I mean, it's unfortunately, just I was really hoping this food stamp thing would really keep going because I wish that we could somehow get them out of the states. We could just say, hey, you know what, you can't use SNAP benefits in Texas. That would begin to kind of solve a little bit of our problems because all those leftist voters are going to have to go somewhere else. But again, I don't see that happening anywhere in the near future.
So for Trad, Joey, and myself, that's right about now, as of 2020, the Muslim population, about 313,000, is about 1% of the population. However, they are concentrated in Houston. They are concentrated in Dallas. And to Trad's point, they operate very much like the Amish and others, where they will group together. They will consolidate. Look at, mini Somalia up up there in the Northwest.
Minneapolis. Yeah.
Minneapolis. Yep.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the Minneapolis mayor, that mayoral race, was it a mayor race? I forget what race
Yeah,
it was.
it was a mayor race. Yep.
Okay, Omar Fateh was running against some Democrat establishment guy, and he only lost by like 4 or 5 points. Like, it was a slim margin that he lost by. But again, it could have been a similar situation where you have this, this essentially immigrant who's coming to the country, running for a state, a political position, and then winning, right? Running on this ticket, this platform that's very progressive, very leftist, very antithetical to American values and norms. So again, it's super, super incredible to see this happen in my lifetime. But the fact that things are coming to a head rather quickly, and we're seeing the cultural shift happen in real time with people realizing, okay, here's what really matters, for the country, right? So
yeah, exactly. Let's go to Angel, who is in the state that has been the place that everybody, New York, the Northeast, being a Rhode Islander, everybody's dream was to move to Florida at some point. And Florida is kind of the refuge of the New Yorkers. What is the feeling down there? I don't know if you have that many people. Just let me ask you this. The feeling of the people that have moved there post 2020, assimilation wise and so forth. And how do people look at the fact that every time there's a mess up in a blue state in Delaware, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, California, everybody's first response is, well, I'm just going to move to Florida. I don't know how you Floridians react to people's comments in that way.
Yeah, Rick, sorry about earlier. I had
You're
some
good, bro.
audio issues. So yeah, we don't, Florida's a melting pot. It's a very unique state. We have a lot of people from Latin America come do business here. It's a melting pot, when Orlando and Miami, especially. But once you go up north, it's more rural. It's more of the southern mentality, right? But for the most part, it's not really anything that we worry about around here. Everything's usually very stable here politically, freedom wise, homeschooling laws, homesteading laws, gun laws, everything that we love. It's safe here, for the most part. Circling back to Zohran Mamdani, getting elected. I mean, the worry that I don't have that worry, but I'm saying for the people of New York City is that he's a democratic socialist. And what that means is, he even said it in his campaign trail, because I read his bio prior to the show. He's talking about government, or city mandated grocery stores with city taxes so people can check in and eat. I mean, that is like, you know what people are doing in Cuba and in communist countries. I mean, that's just scary. um there's a lot of other things. I mean, I know he's for labor rights and things of the that the socialists believe in. Also, they're gonna probably do something like rent freezes and rent stabilized units. Tax increases on higher earning people in California. I mean, in New York. So all that's going to trickle down. And if you really think about it, who's going to remain there after all this? That's the question.
That's a great question. We're going to jump on that in a second, but let me throw it back to you in regards to as the resident prepper here. If these policies become more popular across the union, which DFW, Muslims, and that you know different way of life, that way of life that is antithetical to Western values, as it spreads, it's about 1% in DFW, 3% in Houston. Once those, as Travis said, demographics are destiny. Within 10 years, there could be something that we are seeing there. It would behoove us, right, Angel, to start looking into growing crops, finding ways to just develop our own food, because communists, their favorite way, he who controls the food supply controls the people. And you could see Zohran's one way is, I'm going to make food free for you, or as cheap as possible. And people are like, yes, of course. But in his way, Angel, he's going to combat food deserts by making more food deserts because they don't work. And that's going to be a cascading effect down the line.
Correct. Socialism in its classic Marxist sense is full ownership of the means of production, including food, and controlling that. If you control the food, the people are going to line up and they'll be the peons, right? Those that are homesteading, that are off grid, that are kind of outside of the confines of a city where they're subjected to those extreme laws, they're not going to have to worry about it, right? Until they come for your food, I guess. But I don't think it'll get to that in our time. I think that there's a lot of conspiracy theory and hysteria. This is only one incident of a few. And yes, there's areas that you may not want to live if you want to keep most of your paycheck and things of that nature. But there's a very interesting movement. It's not well known. I don't know if you mind if I put a plug in here real quick. It's called the Catholic Land Movement, and they are a movement of traditional Catholics that are looking to go back to the land. And I always say homesteaders are the best preppers because yep, that's them. And they want to uh, they're exactly what you're talking about. They are living it. They are trying to disconnect from what they call the machine. They're being off grid. They're producing their own economy in a classical old world sense, um, based off of a document called Rerum Novarum by one of the popes. And basically, they're rejecting the modern machine and going to the land. People like that, I mean, they're not going to be affected by any of this, you know. And it's the homesteaders, the ranchers, the farmers that are independent and are bartering with each other, which are going to outlive and outlast any um, you know, political, social unrest, anything of that nature. It's those of us that once the grocery stores run dry, we're going to have to fall back there, and that's what we're going to have to integrate ourselves to these communities in order to survive, whether we like it or not, if it ever gets there. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not putting hysteria out there. We prepare where we're at. We're doing what we can where we're at, but keep that in your back pocket, that there are these networks of Catholics in every state of the union, and you should at least be in communication with them.
Real quick, I had the honor 2 summers ago to speak, and I'm dropping a link in the chat for you guys who are watching live and in the replay. I'll put it into the description box. Michael Shannon, who is the head of the Catholic Land Movement, he invited me up there. I gave a speech up there on firearms, and he let me stay in. This is on his property, like way in the back. I hope I'm not like he has it way in the back in one of his places, and it's completely off grid. Like there's no lights, no anything. He's like, yeah, you can stay here, and I stayed there for like 2 nights, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. I gotta go. I mean, I felt
That
bad.
sounds like a dream getaway for me.
But yes, you made another point earlier, and I completely forgot about it. If anybody wanted to remember it, but the idea that I think we're really people want to attack this politically, and I think Angel made a great point, is that politically it's going to be a losing bargain because Republicans will sell us out to win elections. So the real response that Catholics need to have today, and there are Catholics that are freaking out about this, obviously politically and stuff like that, is really to is to focus, reach out to the Catholic land movement, to reach out to these people that can really help you kind of get a hold of this your food supply, your electric things, and all those other ways, and also really refocus the fact that this is a spiritual battle. And I know Trad brought that up in a really great way, that people in this economy, people in this time are desperate. People are feeling shafted. That's why people are they're following people like Nick Fuentes. Whatever you think about him, he's gaining traction because he's speaking to a disaffected group. And you have all of these people that are just trying to find something, when in reality, the main source that we should be as Catholics retreating to is the faith, and trying to live that as our guiding principle forward. So the fact that people are worrying about this could be an absolute flame out. He could get in there and he could run one term. New York gets run into the ground, and people are like, yeah, we can't do this again. The only problem is, if enough people leave, the window's going to shift, and it's just going to be like San Francisco light. And so that's the problem I see going forward with somebody like Zohran being elected, and the fact that, you know, the largest demographic, and I'm not trying to drop a grenade in here, but the largest demographic that voted him were millennial and Gen Z women who came out in force to vote for him. And that causes a lot of issues down the line, as far as like matching up, and, you know, couples and marriages and more children and things of that nature, which means we got to import more people, and the importation of it. And so it's a crossroads event a lot of people are looking at. And yeah, I really like what Angel's saying. There's a lot of people trying to fear monger at this point, trying to scare people. But yes, there are some things to be worried about in that regard, especially the rapid acceptance of this type of ideology, gentlemen, that, you know, 10 years ago would be unthinkable. But through indoctrinations at schools and just the general public, it has become the kind of like with the LGBT movement, it has become the thing to be a part of, the thing to be associated with. And I don't know how, if there even is a way, or even if we should worry about the general population moving in that direction. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts to any of that.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead, Joe,
just real quick, you know, yeah, I think that is a great point, Rick. The you know, and I guess one positive side to it is that, you know, those women that help put them in power are not reproducers. So we kind of hang a little bit of a hat on that one, but at the same time, you know, there's still going to be this power vacuum. I think eventually, in a way, the way that the country was founded, it is going to kind of work out a little bit to our benefit, because in the future, these people are going to fizzle out. It's not going to work. They're not reproducing. And it's going to come down to your conservative Christian people who are having large families, and the Muslims who are here. And nobody's going to deport them. Nobody's going to do a mass deportation of them, because that would just throw a, you know, that would cause an absolute uproar in the country, you know, amongst the left, you know, because they see them as allies. They're useful allies. And that's how I would say that's how the Muslims view the left. They're useful allies for now, until they become expendable once they achieve the power that they need in order to crack down on them, you know. And we're going to have to just kind of wait this deal out, have your families, you know, dive into your faith, pass down the faith, pass down these same things. Again, you know, like the Catholic land movement, you know, go into local rural communities and grow the population that way, because it is going to be a fad. It is going to die out. Eventually you're going to run out of money, but there will be a power vacuum there. And we do have to work to fill that void, and hopefully have some power coming out of it. Because at the end of the day, if this new mayor doesn't work out, I'm not going to try and say his name, Mamdani or whatever his name is, they're always going to say, well, we didn't socialist enough. We need to go more left. and they'll bring in somebody that's even further left. And so it's going to be, this is going to be a long cycle of this that you're going to see in New York. It's going to, New York is already in a bad shape as it is. It's going to end up looking like Skid Row probably by another 5 or 10 years. And it's just always going to be, we got to go further left, further left, further left. And eventually I think this deal will kind of phase out after a while, but it's going to be about who's going to fill that void whenever it does end.
Yeah, I was going to touch up on that real quick. Like Portland, Oregon, that's kind of going to kind of be like, that's what New York might turn into in a form, in a way, a Muslim version of, and again, I'm not bashing the Muslims. I'm not talking bad about anyone, any kind of anti-religion Semitism by any way, but I am saying, there are groups of people that are affiliated with that faith that do mean us harm. And we saw it, they're attacking reporters. Independent reporters on X are getting attacked in New York City for standing with the Bible in Times Square. They're getting attacked by who? They're getting attacked by those people. And, that tells you a lot, right? I just think that it's awareness. And if we're aware of what's going on, turn off the television and get on the independent channels like X and verify your sources and know where that news is coming from. Unplug that psychological warfare that the legacy media is broadcasting constantly, and turning people against each other. But the truth is, it's going to be an interesting experiment to see how Mamdani is going to turn New York into this democratic socialist utopia that he may never achieve. It may backfire on him, and there people are already walking out of stores in California with goods because the laws are so horrible there. They're allowing people to steal goods that are like petty theft under like a couple $100. People can
It's
go in a
actually like
store. It's not a criminal offense.
real quick. I don't want to. The actual
go
law
for it.
is $999. It's like $999.
Yep.
Goods
So New
before.
York is going to see that. New York might see those grocery stores like we talked about. According to his bio on his website, he has some very aggressive plans to stand by, the workers' parties and people that are traditionally very liberal sense and want you to plug into the system and want you to depend on the government and the system. And that is their ultimate goal,
Yeah, and that's a great point, Angel, because at the end of the day, that's why he wants to set up state-run convenience stores and grocery stores, because Walmart's and all your big corporations, they're going to pull out. They're going to pull out. So that's why he's going to enact these sorts of state-run things, because guess what? You can go into a state-run facility and you have to worry about your local big chain, big box retailer pulling out now.
Correct. And it's just, I mean, this is his, I'm on his website right now. It says born in Uganda, raised in New York City. He has fought for the working class outside of the legislature. Hunger striking along taxi cab drivers. I mean, he's just like very, very, um, the cost of living he's saying is too much. So, it's what he's running on. It says he'll use every tool available to bring the rent down, create world-class public transit, and make it easier to raise a family. Well, what does that mean? He thinks that he's going to give people government subsidized housing, food. And the subway is going to be free. All public transportation is going to be free. It's on his website. I'm reading it. Imagine, his fantasy of this utopia. I mean, what's going to happen there? What is that going to look like? I mean, what is the console's view on the kind of cascading effect of inflation and no economic system, but just plugged into the government? I mean, imagine that. That's the opposite of the Catholic land movement, like we talked about. That idea of self-sufficiency, living off the land and forming our own bartering systems, that is the way for our survival and our Catholic faith. Now, what's happening in New York is a complete opposite of what we're standing for.
So, like, real quick, I'll throw this out there, and then I want Trad and Joey to answer. The problem is he's successful because there's kernels of truth in that. Right now, in these places, through their entire own fault, for those who can't afford it, rent is it's impossible to try and raise a family there. Food prices are too high. All of these things are too high, but the solution is not what Zohran is putting into it, but most people have lost the will, or were never trained, which goes back to the Catholic land movement, to even fend or work hard enough for these things. So, what's the answer to families not being, we can't have families because we can't afford childcare? Well, I'll just give it to you for free. Yeah, that sounds great until you actually see the people that you can get who are watching your kids, the ones who are working for free, the ones who are watching your kids. You're not going to want them watching your kids. Subway's going to run great for like a month, and then the first time it breaks, who's fixing it? Like, these are the problems that nobody really thinks about down the road. But the problem that he's so successful in is that he's tapping into small kernels of truth that are really impacting the greater society that nobody else seems to be attacking, and that's why his message seems to be resonating. I want Trad to jump in now.
No, that's a fair point. I mean, it's his message of, oh, I'll give you free this, free that, all these different programs. It's something that not a lot of people think about, and they think about, where is this coming from? He just says it's going to be free for me. He says I'm going to get this, that, and the other, but they don't think about where that cost is going to come from and how it's going to affect them, right? You look at the prior mayor of New York, Eric Adams, right? He ran that city into the ground for years, and I don't expect anything different from Mamdani, to be quite honest with you. But all these leftist progressive politicians, they promise a big game, and what they end up doing is they underdeliver, overpromise, and they leave their cities, their constituents, what have you, whatever position they're in, worse off than they were before. With Mamdani here promising all these things, I doubt he'll get even a quarter of them, if any at all. Like, to be quite honest with you, I mean, and that's just every politician, to be sure. Like, they're playing a political game. They're right. They play it up for the votes. They play it up to get out, to get people out for the elections. And then once they're in office, it's gridlock, it's compromise, etc. Right. But I honestly feel I have the worst, pain for the New Yorkers who are there living in that state, and they're conservative. Like, I feel bad for those guys, right? I feel bad for the New Yorkers there who are genuinely good people, who didn't want this, who didn't vote for this, who don't support this, but they're going to be the ones affected most by these policies because their taxes are going to go up. Their wages are going to be garnished with more immigrants coming in, with low income housing being built, with all these public transportation and whatnot, all these programs being pushed down their throats, and it's going to affect the middle class and the conservatives and the actual hardworking New Yorkers who are living in that city. So I mean, it's going to be a crapshoot, to be sure. And I don't think he's going to be very successful, which is also a bad thing, right? Because you want your leaders to be successful, and then you want them to be, good leaders. But Mamdani, I don't think is a good leader. I don't think his policies are good. I don't think any of the initiatives that he wants to push are good. So it's going to be rough all around.
I mean, if you think about it, right now, he's actually gone out and said, you don't need to give me money for the campaign. You don't need to do this, any of that. But now he's asking for money for the same people to give him money for his transition team. So we're not even a day after the election, and he's like, yeah, by the way, I need you guys to start giving me money so I can put my transition team into effect. So the bloom is off the rose, as they say, pretty quickly on these types of things. But yeah, I completely agree, Trad. I don't know, Joey, thoughts?
Yeah, not a lot, but and again, the people who voted for him are your young liberals, and they've been taught by the big education system to, you don't worry about where the money's going to come from; it comes from the rich. That's what they're taught. So they're just voting like, yeah, we're going to get free stuff, and we don't worry about where that's going to come from. Let the government, worry about that. They're the ones that are going to get the money. We're just going to get the free stuff, and they don't think about the implications for their own economies, the implications for the safety in their own cities. And here in about another year or two, they're going to be walking in their cities like, man, we thought it was dangerous before. It's even more dangerous now, and you're going to see defunding of police, or they're going to be basically just glorified mall security cops walking down the road, because they're not going to have any real teeth, because if they do anything to actually stop crime, they're going to get fired from their jobs. They're going to lose their livelihood. And again, the police are just going to go like, hey, this is the easy paycheck for me. I'm going to get paid to wear a badge, walk down the street. I don't actually have to put my life on the line. I can just walk around and just kind of just look around and say, hey, stop doing that over there, and that's what New York is going to be. And you're going to see tourism go down. The money from tourism is about to go way down. So if he's hurting for money for a transition team now, you better hang on, because I mean, I would never. I put New York on the same thing as traveling down to Mexico. I'm not going to New York. I'm not going to L.A. or San Francisco. I'll never visit those places because it's dangerous, And so there's going to be more people that are going to think like that. Like, man, I really want to go to New York, but do I really want to risk walking down those streets right now? No, if they're going to feel the pain, they're going to really feel the pain here in about another 5 or 10 years, depending on how long this guy's mayor.
The thing that really jumps out to me, and we'll put a pin on it after this, is that the biggest comparison, the 1-to-1 comparison I'm seeing is London, and the election of Sakith, whatever his name is, Khan or whatever, and how that place is pretty much unlivable. The fact that crime is through the roof. It's always funny when people from England make fun of us for gun crimes. They're like, yeah, you guys use sporks because you guys can't even have fork or knives now because the crime is so rampant in that regard. And that's going to be the solutions that, the leftists always put in there. Oh, well, we'll just ban this. We'll just ban knives. We'll just ban that. And so forth until it really is 1 or 2 generations away from being something that was almost unthinkable at certain points in time. And it is pretty sad to see. But as you guys all completely stated, the people up there voted for it. The people who have the money to leave, or even, and that's the problem. Even in places like South Africa and other places that were, in some parts of the country that are quickly heading towards, very much looking like Cape Town and others, the rich will never have to suffer through the policies of socialism. They never do. Andrew Wilkow, I used to listen to him a lot 10 or 15 years ago. His famous saying, socialism is for the people, not the actual socialist. And it's a pretty terrible thought at this point that, a large city like New York, an economic powerhouse right now, that's where Wall Street is and these other places is going to be suffering. But that's they're going to have to suffer through it because that's what they actually voted for. So I don't know if anybody has any closing thoughts on that.
Not really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just another form of population control for the elite. That's what that is.
Very true. And I look back at, everything we've talked about here, and, people fleeing these once great cities, right? New York, one of the premier cities of the United States, San Francisco, LA. These were once, in one point in time, some of the greatest cities you could go visit. They were landmarks in their own right of American culture, of our people. And now they've been turned, through leftist progressive policy, through insidious lobbying, and through foreign interests. They've been turned into, pardon my French, but shitholes. I mean, really bad places to be. Like, you don't want to be there. You can't, the infrastructure is terrible. There's no law and order. The politicians hate you and the way you live. It's like these cities are just shadows of their former selves. And it's something that I talk about detaching, balkanizing, forming your own communities. But that's so that you have a foothold, so that one day you can take back. You can take back these places that were once great. You can take them back from these insidious actors who have destroyed these national hallmarks and national treasures of our country. So, yeah, it's a shame to see. I mean, they did vote for this. I blame them. I blame a lot of different actors as well. But at the end of the day, we have to hope and pray that one day this can all be turned around.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. So now we're gonna finish up on one last story of the night. It's just a continuation that this council continues to just hammer home. This is from today, guys. This is another article today highlighting the fact that leftists are turning to firearms. And just for the quick, the United States, this is according to this writer, who is, I guess, just figuring this out, but welcome to the party, pal, as we would all say. He states that the United States is hurtling towards civil war. I don't believe so. I'm kind of with Trad. I think we're heading towards more of a balkanization type situation where, like, the Southeastern Conference essentially kind of buckles down and kind of forms their own mini union, and then the West Coast kind of forms its own. I think we're going to see something more like that. But he's highlighting things from the American Spectator that says, and the post-Floyd left has convinced itself that it's fighting for survival. It questions the dogmas threatening its existence. That's why the dissenters within the ranks are pushing with medieval brutality. And we talked about the John Brown Club and others. And so, guys, the idea here, it's just another article. It's another warning sign that we are in the Trump slump. People on the right tend to stop with their training, stop with their prepping, stop with all of these things because we've elected Trump. Trump will fix it. Everything will be fine. And the left is taking the same opportunity with as we talked about during the Ruger segment, low gun prices, the availability of training and so forth. So just to kind of quickly go over this one more time, just a quick thought from Trad, Joey, and Catholic Prepper and Angel, the idea that it was kind of a unspoken thing, like, oh yeah, the Antifas and the John Brown clubs, they exist. We're not gonna really acknowledge them. They're kind of our foot soldiers. We know they're there. Angel brought up Portland. Portland famously had the Chaz, which was like a mini Mogadishu for a couple weeks. You had automatic fire going on and people were dying within the Chaz. But the leftists, your mainstream leftist has now embraced the idea of political violence. Think about the Attorney General in Virginia. We didn't talk about it, but he is on record. He with his text messages saying like, hey, he's okay with the harming of his political opponents. And the more acceptance the left has with firearms and so forth, I think the right really needs to wake up to the realization that the left, because the left doesn't know what bathroom to use, and all this other kind of stuff, which is partly true. But the fact of the matter is they are also embracing and they're catching up quite quickly to the idea of self-defense is a fundamental right. And in their view, it's a revolutionary right. And so once again, we'll go down the line, Trad, Joey, and Angel.
Yeah, reading this story, it called to mind for me things that we've talked about, things that I've been talking about for years. It's something that's very real. The left in this country, they truly see their political opponents as enemies, as combatants in a political and in a revolutionary sense, a war, right? A regime change, no regime change has ever been achieved through peaceful means. Let me just say that at the onset. You can look at any point in history. If you want to change a regime, at the end of the day, it's always going to be violent. And for the right, a lot of us have had this mentality over the years of, well, I just want to be left alone. I don't want to be bothered. Leave me alone. Don't bother me. Let me live my life and you can live yours. But the left doesn't operate like that. They don't want to leave you unbothered. They want to bother you and push you and provoke you. And eventually, like we've seen with the tragedies of the past few months, right? They see their political opponents as enemies to be defeated, to be, in a word, exterminated. That's truly how I view it, and I think that's how a lot of them have viewed it. They may not know which bathrooms to use, but they know how to wield power. I've said that for years as well. The leftists may not have the right morality, they may not have the right ethics, etc. But when they're in power, they know how to wield it. They're not going to play by these same rules that Republicans do. They're not going to play patty cake every 4 years. Oh, it's my turn to lead. Okay, now it's your turn to lead. No, when they're in power, they rule, and they know how to wield that effectively, right? For oftentimes to the detriment of law-abiding citizens and conservatives like us, but it's something that we have to be very, very mindful of. I think things are going to get worse before they get better. And if you are conservative in this country, you want to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your country and your nation and the ideals that you stand for, get active, get prepared, train, understand that you are, for lack of a better term, in a war. You're in a cultural war, you're in a social war, an ideological war, whatever you want to call it, but you're at war. So you best be prepared.
Yeah, and that, the thing is, going back to something we talked about before is, the left is always going to accuse you of what they're actually doing, and they are. They're going to force. They accuse us, don't push your religion and your morality on us, but that's exactly what they're doing to us. And you're right, right? They are going to. They are not afraid to wield their power, And unfortunately, it was kind of a disservice, all the videos of the early on Antifa days during the riots and everything, the Proud Boys would go out there and have these clashes with Antifa, and to their point, a lot of them are, if you want to put the word sissy on them, they're very effeminate. They're very weak, as far as strength. They can't go. They're not bodybuilders or strength trainers, anything like that. But if you go back and really, I spent a lot of time analyzing those videos. They do know how to utilize tactics. They do know how to utilize direct contact with their front force, but then utilize flanking tactics to come up and get you from the side, with handheld weapons, and I kind of feel like the right has really. I got to get into a lot of my friends on social media and stuff, like, stop sissifying the left. Don't sissify them, because you don't have to lift weights to pull a trigger. You don't have to pull it. All you have to do is have a mission and to be willing to die for that mission. And they are willing to die for their mission. And we've seen that over and over and over. I don't know how many times it's going to take for there to be one of these mass casualty events for people to get it through their heads that they are willing to die. That's the Viva la Revolution. They are going to die for it. And you do need to train. You do need to train, and so you got to be prepared, and you need to train. None of us, we all need to be willing to step up and do our part, and to do your part, even though we're not a necessarily super organized group of people. We do need to be proficient and be ready to, if that time ever comes, take action if necessary.
Any thoughts, Angel?
Yeah. So with this whole thing with the left turning to guns, it's like we were saying earlier, it's a product of the political polarization that is present in our country, right? That power struggle, back and forth, back and forth, and with Trump getting elected, I mean, I'm not blaming Trump for this, but on the second term, that's a psychological hammer to the extreme leftists that believed that they could continue to drive this country down into what they wanted it to be. Okay. And I don't think we're going into an all out civil war or social unrest just yet, right? Um, but as history taught us, it won't take much. At a blink of an eye, that can all change. I mean, I'm sure that we still have people in government, maybe not many left, but now, with Trump in there, but that, don't want to continue the course we're going now. And the majority of these leftist group, whether it's American socialists, whatever groups, all the flags you see on the thing there you had on the thumbnail, um, you know, all those people have their extremists. And yes, they have the same rights and privileges as we do in this country. So they are going to buy guns. Subreddit is a great place. You go on subreddit, you'll learn so much. You'll see the liberals talking. There's a thing called liberal gun owners. You'll go on there. Some of them don't even know like how a magazine and an AR work, but they're buying it and they're going to go learn it because they think that they're going to have to like rise up and fight the system. This is what they're people like Antifa is telling these people. They're these organizations. They're brainwashing these Gen Zers into believing that they have to do this, and that a conservative Christian is evil, and all these things. Like we don't want to limit their freedoms. On the contrary, we want them to do whatever they want. Right? Just leave us alone. Right? Leave us alone. Not in the sense of that we agree with what they're doing, but in the sense of freedom of speech in general. Right? But the protection goes out the door because, as we can see, we have freedom of speech now. But if you were to say that in front of an ICE facility in Portland, Oregon, you know, um, eventually, when your numbers are thinning, the socialists that are there, those Antifas, they're going to attack you, because they have greater numbers. And you know, um, there's a lot of independent news agencies on X that, like streamers that are there live every night. I keep track of them, and they can't be there by themselves because they're going to get attacked. And those Antifa socialists, they're relentless. Like they'll stand there with umbrellas to block the tear gas pellets. They wear gas masks. They know what they need to do. And one more thing, in the age of ChatGPT, YouTube, all of that, even if the person doesn't train, they could probably acquire maybe like 30% of the skill to become functional, a functional member of a anti-government guerrilla or whatever you want to call it. And that's what they're doing now. They're using technology to their advantage, even though, like Joey said, the Gen Zers that are extreme leftists, they are like pansies. They are not going to um, be at the same level as the conservative right, where the split is about 60-30 according to the Pew research here that I'm looking at. 60% of veterans are conservative, 30 are Democrat, and that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, no, it's just another. I saw that article today, and I just want to continue to hammer to the audience that hey, popular media, Fox, all these kinds of guys, they want to continue, as Joey says, to sissify the left, kind of make fun of them, look how funny they are with their little things, but at the same time, they are not a threat to be taken lightly. And I think that's, if you get anything, hopefully you get a lot out of this stream with you guys. Please don't take it lightly. Make sure that you are addressing and keeping that at least in your mind as you do your preps and maybe you get your license to carry and you learn these other things to keep yourself as much of an armed and active citizen that you can make sure that if the occasion happens that you can be well equipped to handle whatever situation comes your way. So now we are going to get to our favorite part of the show. All of our parts are the favorite parts of the show, but we are going to get to our daily deal section here. And which one do you want to talk about first, Joey?
Yeah, let's go with the My Patriot Supply.
All right, here we go.
Oh, I love those guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, me too. Yeah, so My Patriot Supply, they have the
I don't know if Joey's still with us.
Are you there?
I'm here. Yep. Anyway,
all right, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry, I had to go back to the screen. Sorry. So the if you spend $250 on their website, they will give, it's a Veterans Day sale that they're running right now. They will give you a 1-week supply of food. So great way to kind of get started, make a quick little initial investment, make at least $250 investment into your emergency preparedness supply kits, and they'll give you a week's worth of food for free.
Yeah, and that's not hard to get to $250. Even if you look at the purification, right? You get water purifier. Yes. There you go. Now you get that and a free and a couple weeks worth of food. There's a week's worth of food, so you're actually well ahead of it. And I don't have this specific one, but I recommend everybody, even if you don't have one in reserve in case water supplies goes down. It's great to be able to purify your own water and so forth on that. So yeah, My Patriot Supply, excellent place, grabbing food and all other kinds of stuff. What's next?
We can do the medic supply kits. My medic. They're running a 25% off all their medical kits right now. They have lifetime guarantees on those. So I know there's some other great ones out there, but hey, you can get 25% off and get at least something started for you. That's a great way to kind of get going. And everybody needs to have a trauma kit, or I mean, at best, I mean, a basic one. But I would highly suggest that you get something more comprehensive and at a quarter off their normal prices. I mean, that's a great deal they're running right now.
And this.
Yep, these are awesome. I recommend My Medic. If American Rescue is awesome. My Medic is awesome as well. Get yourself an IFAC, get a med bag, put it in your truck, put it in your everyday, go bag, your backpack, what have you. You'll be the guy everybody counts on if you're well trained and you have this medical equipment that you can save somebody's life with.
I mean, go ahead.
No, yeah, I know. Like my parish, we have a comprehensive medical kit there at our parish. So if we ever need it, it's there for us and it's ready to go.
And this is what we're trying to hammer to you guys with this Trump slump and stuff like that. This is a $300 medical kit bag that you can get for almost $100 off. It's too
ridiculous price.
So
wow.
This is what we're talking about here, and it's going to come with. And this is just the one I picked out. You're going to get all these medical supplies. And it's going to get you so far ahead as far as making sure your preps are ready to go. And this is a great example of what we're talking about with the fact that the stuff is out there and the stuff is very, very reasonably priced. And so, I can't afford it. Guys, it's $200 for a really a bag that, as Trad said, you can throw this in your car, you can keep it in your house if you need to get out for an emergency, a flood, or whatever the case may be. It's easy, it's packed, it's ready to go, and you can just get out there. So huge. I just want to reinforce the fact that when we're talking about prices being cheap, we're not just kind of we're not politicians trying to make believe. This is like real world evidence. The stuff is out there, and it's very affordable right now.
Yeah, and also if you have a health savings account, an HSA account, and you have a debit card that goes with that, you can use that for this purchase. So if you have some sort of HSA account, you can use those funds to make this purchase.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Let's next one.
The Aero Precision, they got their M5 E1 uppers. What's the price on that? $339, and they actually have those in available variety. If you actually go to the link, it's through the Aero Precision website. You can actually get. There's actually I think they had 300 blackout, 5.56. I'm not sure if those are the only two calibers, but they actually had a variety of different lengths that you can choose from on those. That is the M5 E1, so you have to keep in mind that is a proprietary design through Aero Precision. So you have to, if you get that, you will have to buy the M5 E1 lower to attach to that. You can't just get a run of the mill AR-15 lower and plug that in.
Yeah, that's actually very, very smart to think about. And if for those of you that are not as aware, because if for whatever case, you can buy these and have these shipped to your house, because they are not they're the upper part. The part that you would actually have to do a 4473 on is the lower, the part that's serialized. So if you're worried about that, you can buy these and have these shipped to your home. Once again, you're looking at things that are $500, $600 for 330 shipped. So the stuff is out there. If you have the ability to, the stuff is out there for you to be able to get it.
Yeah, and I tell you what, don't sleep on the Aero Precision. I have a buddy of mine who has a couple of those. He actually put together the EPC 9mm version of it, and I'm telling you, that thing will drive tax. I've shot that. It is a absolute. It's wonderful to shoot. So, if at some point they put those 9mm on there, definitely I would recommend grabbing one of those. It's a great little thing. And also with the Aero Precision website, if you go into their tabs, you can actually find their blims. They have blemish. They have small imperfections. And I'll tell you, I actually got it. The 308 lower build. I did a 308 build with them, and I got a bunch of the blemish parts. I had to really look over the part to find the blim on there. They're not very noticeable, so you can actually save quite a bit of money by going and getting their blemish parts. They do go kind of quick, so you do got to keep it on their website every day. Just kind of click on there and see what you're looking for, and see something pops up that fits your needs.
And let me just throw this in there, and I don't know if Trad has anything on the gun parts we're talking about here, but don't worry about getting blemished parts, because if you're going to actually run your gun, here's a tip: it's going to get blemished.
It's going to get blemished.
It's kind of like when you get a used car and you don't mind if it's in the parking lot and somebody hits it, because you're like, it's already got scratches on it, so I don't really care. So it's kind of the same mentality there. I don't know what your thoughts are, Trad.
No, very true. If you're putting any sort of training, any sort of real world use into your firearms, you're going to get nicks, you're going to get dings. I mean, if you look at my brass deflector on my AR-15, that thing is all but worn away. For thousands upon thousands of rounds I've put through my AR. And the barrel on my AR is an Aero Precision. It's from their 12.5 Atlas S1 lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I changed the handguard on mine, but fantastic barrel. They make really good barrels. I think Ballistic Advantage is the sister company for Aero, and they do all the barrel manufacturing, chrome molybdenum, made in America. And they do have stainless steel barrels as well, but quality barrels. So you're going to really get good rifling and a variety of different twist rates, different calibers that you can mix and match for your specific build. And all the barrels I've shot with arrows are nail drivers, like Joey's saying. It's fantastic.
Yeah, those barrels are awesome. They're great. You can get those on sale through their website. Even you can go through Optics Planet. They run specials on those all the time. The Ballistic Advantage barrels, outstanding barrels.
Yep. Yeah, and don't be afraid, because sometimes people will say, "Oh, well, that's a lower brand or whatever." Just it's kind of like the same thing with PSA. Just give them a thumbs up and move on, because most if you take care of your equipment, it's going to run. So just take advantage of it at that point. Angel, you got any thoughts on any of the stuff we talked about?
Yeah, I mean, Ariel's a great. It's a great brand.
I put them up there. I have a build that's aerial, and I think they have good products. Top, maybe middle to top tier, because depending what you get from them. Um,
Mhm.
My Patriot, yeah, I mean they're good. You have your freeze dried, your dehydrated foods. Um, you know, eh, you just this is a lifelong process, right? To prep, but I post almost every week. Even if you just buy a box of MREs from Amazon and store 7 gallons of water, have a little survival kit and first aid kit and some means to communicate with the outside world, and or to listen to the outside world, like some sort of an Eaton kind of all band radio. If the internet were to go out, and maybe if you want to protect yourself, a handgun with ammo as much as you can afford. That's all you need, to get started. You just covered all the bases. You can write it out for a week, right? But it's a lifelong haul. It just build and build and build, and don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, have more than one thing going.
Hey,
Um,
Angel, here's a question for you. What radios do you recommend? Because I know you see a lot of people out there pushing the Baofangs. I know you're not big on those. What radios do you recommend?
I have Belfangs. I have Yaesu, Japanese radios. They're probably the best brand. Um, the I'm trying to pull up the website here, but Yaesu are Japanese made, top tier. Um, you
How do you
you really
spell that?
Yaesu.
Gotcha.
Um, they make great radios. I'm about to drop a link here in the chat. Um, that's their handhelds. Um, those are top-notch radios, couple $100, and I mean, I've used Belfangs, but I mean, I've used an old FT60 with a upgraded antenna. And I've hit a repeater maybe 30 miles away. You know, it's right there, the one on the bottom left, that FT60 right there. Yep, FT60. No,
Nope.
the
My
other
other
one.
left. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, 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 that one right there, the promo. Yep, that's an older radio, but it's an all band. You can even pick up air bands on it. You can
Oh
pick up
wow.
FM radio on it. You can pick up HF. You cannot. Only 2 meter, and all those, and you can unlock it yourself. There's like a little cord inside it. If you rip out, it's completely legal. You see how the bands? There you go. It's all band, and yeah, I mean that thing is a beast. That radio. A lot of
Hmm.
search and rescue crews use that because they're water resistant. But that's the radio I would recommend if you're going to go 2 meter. Obviously, you need license. You need at least an entry level license. But you could program those for FRS and GMRS frequencies and use them without a license. But the ham licenses, you're gonna, they say in an emergency you don't need a license, but it, but yeah, it's
You should
definitely.
take those courses so you actually know how to use it.
The test is not hard. I just
Yeah,
have
no,
I've never taken it,
it's
but
like 30 questions, your entry level test. I can operate on HF frequencies. I have the middle tier. So I have, HF, is a completely different monster. You get into more mid to long range communications. Like if you guys had an HF radio at home with a wire thrown up on a tree, you'd probably be able to reach me from where I'm at in Florida.
Wow.
It's a 2000, a one hop is 2,000 miles on an HF radio. This is more dependent on a repeater. So you would have to connect to a repeater, known repeater in your state, and know the offset to communicate with someone within your state, and you would be more limited. Um, but or a couple mile range. Two people have those, but considering that's an all band, that's what I recommend. I mean, it's 189. It's a lot more than a $20 Belfang, but you just can't compare the quality. I mean, I have Belfangs everywhere, and you
Yeah, I
drop it
got a
and
couple
they're
myself.
and yeah, yeah, and those things you get them wet, some dirt, you drop them. I've trained with them. They're not. I mean, yeah, I still have this same the FT60. I've had it for like 10 years, never failed me. Yep, yep, I got that one. FT, yeah, the 5 UV5R. Huh?
Yep, UV5R. Yep.
But doesn't that kind of speak to your idea that you were talking about, Angel, of building? Maybe right now you just don't have the ability to, so maybe you get the Baofeng just to have something. But as you get more, also sometimes it's easier to get a Baofeng to learn on. You can kind of understand, and
Correct.
then as you get better, and then you get the FT60. So you're
Correct.
you're
And
gaining on that kind of stuff. But you could do it that way, right?
yeah, and like I said, these radios would be more for short range communications within 5 miles, right? You know, I mean, you can set up repeaters to run, GMRS frequencies that you don't require licensing to do that. And you can communicate with, family or people nearby. You can probably even do 20, 30 miles if you do it right, you know. So it all depends. It's what is it specific to your philosophy of use.
Mm,
So, I'm working with a guy that I can't really talk about who he is on I can't broadcast it, but um, we're planning on maybe setting up a network of Catholic homesteaders having HF radios where we can all communicate, or Catholics in general, where we can communicate within our prepping networks and our people, if the grid were to go down outside of the government, because every state has a SAR network, but
mm.
this would be independent to us only.
Oh.
Excellent. Good stuff.
Fantastic.
Well, I don't know if you guys just realized my timer on my lights just went out, so I guess that's pretty much it for me. I think my I'm being told to wrap it up. It's like the Oscar music. But anyway, I appreciate all of you guys here. Any final thoughts on anything we talked about tonight? Trad, Joey, and then Angel.
No, thanks again, Rick, for having me back. Glad to be back this week with you guys, and fantastic show as always. No, for the audience listening, don't take anything what we're saying here. Don't doom scroll. Don't be blackpilling. Always have hope. If you're prepared, if you're training, if you put your trust in God, everything will work out in the end. So, that's all I got.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep yourself grounded in your faith. That's the biggest thing. That's the number one most important thing is your faith and making sure you're practicing the sacraments. You're getting out there and you're teaching your kids these things and passing down the traditions that have been handed down to us for millennia now. And keep that faith alive. At the end of the day, that's what we're going to have.
I don't know if you have any final thoughts, Angel.
Yep. No, just keep the course. You need to prepare. You need to pray. You need to persevere. Right. We can't let any of this anything going on in the world deter us from continuing the course. And that is the goal of Satan, right? From the beginning of time, is to deter us and be afraid. But Christ Himself told us, right? Do not be afraid. I will be with you until the end of time. So don't just keep the course.
Yeah, I got nothing to add. The council has spoken. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us live or in the replay. Drop a like, drop a comment, let us know what you guys think. Subscribe if this is your first time seeing us here on the Council of St. Michael. We're dedicated to bringing as much information to you guys as possible. We appreciate you being here. We'll see you all next week. God bless and Viva Cristo Rey.